Hey guys, and welcome on into the next NHL offseason preview show. And today we're going to be talking all about the Boston Bruins, taking a look at their offseason draft picks and management, free agents, as well as a projected lineup for the Bruins. And then at the end, we'll give our offseason tasks on what we think the Bruins need to do in the offseason. And I said we. I have Bet with Mikey joining me today. Of course, you can find his Twitter link in the description below. Make sure to go give him a follow. Mikey, a hockey handicapper, as well as a Boston Bruins fan. That's exactly why I asked you to come on the show. You know the team. And give people a brief introduction of yourself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Yeah, big off season for the Bruins. Interested to see what they do this year. It's going to be a huge off season after an underwhelming season for them last year. So yeah, been a Bruins fan forever and a day, born and raised in that area. So been following the team for quite a bit. So I'm interested in seeing what they do in the off season, and it's going to be a monster one. So there's going to be a lot of news throughout the summer because shouldn't say a lot of, but they have a few holes to fill and a big draft pick to pick. So we'll see what happens.
And they've got cap space,
And they have
which
a
is
lot of cap space. Yes, sir, they do.
that's what all teams want heading into the
Exactly.
off season. We're going to jump into the first segment, which is draft picks and management. So, taking a quick look at the draft picks that the Bruins have. Of course, they have their first round pick this year, as well as their third, fifth, sixth, and seventh. They don't have their fourth round pick, but they have Philadelphia's to replace that. And then two second round picks, one from St. Louis, one from Carolina. So, the Bruins have some draft picks to work with here this upcoming season. Taking a look at management, Don Sweeney re-signed as general manager, I believe a 2-year contract. And then head coach is currently vacant, but there's a lot of rumors that Marco Sturm will be the next head coach. So we are recording this on a Friday afternoon. The show will be coming out Friday night, and it would not shock me at all to see him be announced in between these next few hours. So, because the rumors have been there for quite a few days now. So, of course, at this moment, head coach is an important vacancy that the Bruins need to deal with heading into the summer. And then they've obviously got some draft picks. Mikey, what do you think overall about the draft picks that the Bruins have? And then what are your opinions on the head coach and who you might like to see as head coach?
Yeah, as far as the draft picks, I mean, before we found out where the Bruins were going to pick, they had a shot at drafting as high as number 1 or as low as number 7. So, of course, we got the number 7 draft. But, I mean, it's okay. If had they moved up, it would have been given. They would have had a chance to land a potential franchise defenseman like Schaefer or a top line talent like Misa. But that's not going to be the case. So once you land between 5 and 7, they're in that range where you can look at centers like James Higgins, Anton Frondell. You can look at Caleb Desnoyner or Jake O'Brien. That's I'm feeling that's one of the 4. I'll be shocked if they get to Higgins. I don't think they will. I think someone will scoop him up before, but that's pretty much the 3 or 4 players that they're likely going to pick. They also added a couple of second round picks thanks to moving Freddie and Coyle. So we'll see what they do. It's such an important draft, and I feel like every team and organization says that. But they gave Sweeney the keys for another 2 years. He can't jack this one up like he did in 2015. He can't afford to do that. He won't have keys to the castle much longer if that's the case. As far as the head coaching goes, I think Woodcroft kind of got a raw deal. I'm a fan of giving coaches second chances. Bruce Cassidy, once coached the Capitals, didn't do too well, went to the Providence Bruins, did a great job with them, did a great job when he got promoted to the bench with the Bruins. Then you have Mike Sullivan, similar situation. Mike Sullivan didn't do great his first time with the Bruins, then went to Pittsburgh, won a couple cups. So, I think Woodcroft wouldn't be a bad choice. I think he's learned quite a bit in the last year or two since he's been out. But you know what? I'm not surprised if they go with Sturm. He spent a good 5 years with the Bruins. He knows the expectations. He knows the organization. And, it's not one of those typical recycled coaches that we see every year. So I'm fine with Woodcroft or Sturm. I think Sturm may be a little bit better, fresher blood for the Bruins. Since he was with the organization, he knows what to expect. So I'll be okay with the Sturm hiring.
Awesome. Yeah, something to mention as well, which I forgot to mention there, is offer sheet capability. The Bruins have complete offer sheet capability, so they can offer any restricted free agent any dollar amount, as they have all of their picks needed the next few seasons if they wanted to go the RFA route. And as you said, they have extra picks, 2 first rounders next year in a very loaded draft, and 2 first rounders in 2027. So could the Bruins possibly move up? As you said, they're slated to pick 7th overall, but with all the draft picks they have, they could potentially move up a couple spots. They have that capability.
Yeah, they do. And I don't know. There hasn't been that much information if they'd like to do that. I don't know if there's anyone that's coming out first or second that they're absolutely in love with, that they feel that they can plug in right away. The thing with NHL draft is it's kind of like baseball, but not as long. Usually the players you draft are going to be in the minors for a little bit of time. It's very rare that you just grab a guy and, plug him in top line, second line, third line, and their immediate contributions. I mean, we've seen it, but it's a rarity. So if they feel that there's someone out there that they think they can plug in and make contributions right away, I can see them doing it. But I don't know. I think they might hold their ground, but they have plenty of ways to move up if they wanted to.
Yeah, tons of options for the Bruins this draft, and not a lot of expectations. I think most people kind of expect this Bruins team to be bottom of the Atlantic. A lot of people just look at the guys that have left the last few years and kind of assume that they're going to be a bottom feeder. But you should never assume, especially in the AHL. And then we'll get to a little bit more about their future later on in the show. Next segment is free agents. And as you can see here on the screen, the Bruins have quite a few free agents to deal with here. The UFAs, I think, could probably move on, and I think they're pretty replaceable guys. And then when it comes to the RFAs, some former Wild players on here with Jacob Lauko and Marat Kusadinov. I should be able to pronounce his name. Marat Kusadinov, both RFAs. And I have to say, Marat played very, very well for the Bruins when he got traded from the Wild. Boston just seemed to be a good fit for him after that trade. So he is an RFA. I would be pretty surprised if the Bruins don't sign him. A great face-off centerman. He's that good third line type of player. So I would expect the Bruins to re-sign him, but he's not going to break the bank. The other guys in this list, of course, top 2 up here, Morgan Geekie and Mason Lohrei, the 2 guys I think the Boston Bruins need to re-sign. They should be priority 1, priority 2, and then the other guys below, Beecher, Wallstrom, Lauko, won't break the bank. There'll be cheap deals if they get re-signed, or maybe they go elsewhere. The Bruins, at this point, after the season they had last year, they've got a lot of cap space here, $26 million. And of course, the cap will continue to increase the next few years. So a lot of options here for the Bruins. I think looking at this list, I think Mikey's going to probably agree with me. that it's Morgan Geekie and Mason Lowry, who had a great season, Mason Lowry, last year. So if he continues that, he's going to get a pretty decent deal at this point. I don't know if the Bruins are going to look at kind of a 2-3 year deal or maybe a long-term deal. But with Morgan Geekie, I'd be looking at re-signing him long-term if I was the Boston Bruins. Mikey, a bunch of guys in this list, free agents. Who do you think the Bruins should re-sign? Who do you think would be fine if they go elsewhere?
Yeah, you nailed it. Pretty much. Geeky and Lowry are my top two on the to-do list. Just a couple of Julys ago, Geeky signed a 2-year, $4 million contract with the Seattle Kraken, kind of as a bottom six winger, to be honest. So not many expected him to develop into a top line winger next to Pasta. So we'll see. He's only 26 years old. We'll see if he can replicate his 33-goal production from this past season. But he's going to get a raise, and he's going to get a sizable raise. So, and with the salary cap going up and how well he did this year and how we just gelled with Pasta, I'm expecting $6 million for him. In my opinion, it's kind of high, and the Bruins do this all the time. A guy does great one season, they give him a long-term contract with a little bit of money, and then sometimes it doesn't pan out. But I think they're going to have to give him at least $6-ish. And I'm okay with that because he and Pasta flourished together, so I can understand if they had to go a little high. Pasta scored 40 goals for the 4th straight season, over 100 points for the 3rd consecutive year. And Geeky, he had a career year at 33 goals, 16 more than last year. So they're going to get it done with Geeky. They just absolutely have to. With Lowry, they're going to get it done with him. If I would say he's going to be in the 2-ish, $2.5 million range, if I had to guess. As far as Lowry is concerned, I agree with you with Nustendinov. I hope I didn't butcher his name. Once that trade went down and once his first 2 games with the Bruins, I read all the Twitter comments, and Wild fans were going crazy because they didn't give him enough time. They didn't put him in the top 6 role. And I totally get it. I loved this kid's energy. A little undersized, but every time he was out there, he was like the little road runner. So I absolutely love that. I think they are going to sign him. It'll be like you said, he's not going to break the bank. He's going to get a little bit of a bridge deal. But I think they're going to end up keeping him. As far as your checking line forwards, people like Cole Koepke, Jacob Locko, Johnny Beecher, I don't know what they're going to do. I'll be honest. They'll have to determine which ones are going to return and which ones are going to go. They also have to make calls on pending free agent defensemen like Yoki Haru and Parker Witherspoon. I think they might keep Yoki Haru kind of like in the 3rd D pairing. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Witherspoon. You hear some rumors that they love him, some rumors that they can do away with him. You also have a log jam of middle 6 centers under contract. And, that could make the Bruins entertain trade offers for people like, Casey Middlestat, who signed through 2027, or Matt Poitras. They could get rid of him. So I want to see what they're going to end up doing with them. What's not talked about is what they're going to do with Korpisalo. I know he's signed for a couple more years, but he expressed that he wants to play a lot more games. He only showed up in 27 games. So that's another topic, but I want to see what they're going to end up doing with him. But, Geeky, Lowry for sure. Nustendinov for sure. And then we'll see what they do with the checking forwards like Beecher and Locko. I don't know what they're going to do with them, to be honest.
Yeah, and then they're probably replaceable too, right? There's a lot of those type of guys that'll probably be in the free agent market. So
Yeah,
if they have to go out and get somebody. Moving on along to the projected forward lineup for the Bruins, and looking at this forward group, I can kind of understand why some people think that the Bruins are going to have a rough season. This is assuming that they re-sign their RFAs and not their UFAs. But in a very, very tough Atlantic division, in a very tough Eastern Conference, if Jacob Lauko is on your second line, I think there's some issues there. So obviously the Bruins have some young players here. They'll be hoping will take that next step forward, and they have cap space. So it's very, very, actually, it's not just possible. It's highly likely that this is not the lineup that the Bruins have opening night. But projections right now, obviously that top line is great with Lindholm, Geeky, and Pasternak. Zach on the second line is good. Fabian Lysell, I believe, has quite a bit of potential as a young forward. But otherwise, I think the Bruins need some offensive help. I think it's going to be very, very tough for a lineup like this to compete at this point in time. Mikey, do you agree with me? What do you think about this lineup overall? And then are there any players that you would like to see join this forward group?
If that's the players that they're going to ice in game 1 in October, I don't think we'll crack 70 points. That is not a lineup that wows you whatsoever. And I'd be pleasantly surprised if that's the lineup that they're going to ice. It's just not going to happen. Too much cap space. Not a lot of happy fans and brass from what happened last year. You had several key departures, but you also got stuff in return for them. So in my opinion, this is going to be a very quick retool on the fly. I'm okay with Geeky and Pasta up front, as well as Lindholm. I think that'll be your top line: Geeky, Lindholm, Pasta. As far as the second line is concerned, I would put, Casey Middlestat at left wing, try and bring in Sam Bennett as your second line center, and put Zacha over on the right wing. Third line, I'd like to see them get Will Coyle, third line winger, have Fraser Minton instead of the fourth line center. You bring him up as a third line center, along with, give Potras that bridge deal, a little less than $900,000. You can put him in as your third line right winger. And your fourth line winger, I'm going to keep Nustadinov there, and I'm going to center him with, I'm going to put Kastlik as the fourth line center and Cole Koepke as your fourth line winger. So that's what I would like to see done, and I think that's a more than serviceable lineup for game 1. With the defensemen, I'm not expecting too many changes. You're going to have Lohrei and McAvoy as your top pair, Lindholm and, bring in a Dante Fabro or something for the second line, and then Zadorov and Peak as your third line. But yeah, what you said, if this photo that we're looking at is their day one players, it's not going to be good. So I'm not expecting that at all.
Awesome. We'll get to defensemen a little. You jumped the gun a little bit. No, it's fine. It's fine. We'll get to defensemen in the next segment, but that's all good. First, we're going to take a look at some UFAs. Of course, start with left wingers. And there's a familiar face listed here, number 2, Brad Marchand. Is there any left wingers in this list that you would be interested in the Bruins adding this offseason?
Yeah, I'd like Nicholas Ehlers. I'd love Marshall.
Everybody wants him. He's the number 1 left winger. Everybody wants him.
I think
he's going to get a big payday.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. You never know. Time heals all wounds. You just never know, but I'll be pleasantly surprised. But, out of those 6 players, I'd bring in Ehlers. He's one of the youngest players. He's good for 20+ goals and 30+ assists. You can count on him to do that year in and year out. But my biggest concern with Nicholas Ehlers is his health. That's my concern. He tends to miss several games every year. So that's my concern. I would bring him out of those 6 players. I'm bringing him just because of his production and his age. And I think he'll be a great mix with the other Bruins players. His health just concerns me.
Yes, that's very true. And with him being the number 1, UFA left winger. Because if you do look at like Marchand and Ben, those guys are pretty old. And there is a point drop off after Nikolai Ehlers. So, like you said, his injury history, with him being like the number one left winger, he's gonna probably get overpaid this offseason. And yeah, with an injury history, overpaying a player, that can lead to some troubles down the line. So, might be a player, maybe it might be better for the Bruins to pass on, but we'll see, of course. Centers, you already mentioned one of these guys, but what do you think about the other guys in this list? Anyone else you would like to see? John Tavares coming to Boston. How about that? No, I'm kidding. What do you think of? No, hey, we were talking about it with Andrew McGinnis. Tavares going to Montreal, so you never know what's going to happen this offseason. What do you think about this list?
Yeah, I'm big on age. I don't want to discriminate because a lot, look at Corey Perry. Guy just turned 40 a couple weeks ago, and he's absolutely producing and he's absolutely meaningful for the Edmonton Oilers. So I don't want to age discriminate, but age is important to me. So I'm looking at players like, of course, Sam Bennett. That would be my number one pick. But I'm also looking at Ryan Donato. And, local kid, already played with the Bruins, but he's looking for a payday as well. And I don't know, with the other players that the Bruins want, I don't know if they'll be able to afford Ryan Donato, but I'd be more than happy for Ryan Donato to come back. I think he's a plug in and play guy. I'm not worried about how he's gonna perform. I know he's gonna bring it game in and game out. So out of those, 8 players, I'm looking at Bennett and I'm looking at Donato.
Donato's really interesting. We've been talking about him obviously every previous show that we do, but 31 goals, 31 assists on the Chicago Blackhawks with basically no help around him. He had an absolutely fantastic season, but I don't know if he's a 30 goal, 30 assist player every year. I think and it's hard to say he overachieved because he did it on the Blackhawks. But I really think Ryan Donato is probably going to be one of those players again that's probably going to be overpaid. He's probably going to get a deal that's a bit too high. And I don't know if he can live up to this because 31 goals, 31 assists, that's a really good season. And he hasn't really done that before. So I have my question marks with Donato myself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He absolutely overachieved. He is not a 30 plus goal scorer. And it was impressive with what he did with the Blackhawks, but he is more of a, 15-ish goals, 18 assists kind of guy. That's what you can count on him. But he's someone's gonna pay that. I don't know who. I'd love for the Bruins to get him, but not on a ridiculously expensive contract because, at the end of the day, he's a 15 goal scorer. He's not a 31 goal scorer. So we'll see, but he is going to get paid.
Yeah, he's a UFA at the right time. Cap going up, having a career season. He's definitely happy to be a UFA. Right wingers, of course, you just mentioned Corey Perry, who I had to make a change here with the right winger screen because, of course, the Islanders signing Palmieri just half hour ago. So Corey Perry got to make the screen here, age 40. What do you think about this list of right wingers? Everyone and their mother wants Mitch Marner. But does anybody on this list catch your eye?
Yeah, everyone does want Marner, and he's going to be asking for a lot. Someone is going to pay that amount that he wants. Listen, I criticize him a lot. At the end of the day, he is an amazing hockey player. He really is. Come playoff time, he's not the kind of guy that I want on my team because I don't see any consistency. The sample size is large, and he's about to get paid. So where's the want? Where's the hunger? Because he hasn't had it, and now he's about to get a lot more money. So I know it sounds crazy to say you wouldn't want Mitch Marner. I just don't want that type of postseason player and that money attached. That's my problem with him. Out of these 6 players, again, don't want to age discriminate, but when it comes to money, age, and what you can do, I'm going with Brock Besser. 75 games played, 25 goals, 25 assists. He is that type of player. You're getting 20 to 25 plus goals and assists with him each year. So out of those, Riley Smith could come back. He's another player that the Bruins had, but mid 30s, no thank you. So I'm going with Brock Besser.
Perfect. And final screen before we get to the defensemen, RFAs. And as I said earlier, the Bruins have all of their draft picks available. So if they want a guy in this list and he's not signed, they can offer sheet any player they want on this list. Of course, Geeky already on the team, but anybody on this list catch your eye for RFAs?
Yeah, I'd go with Will Coyle and Marco Rossi. I know you're not going to be too pleased if the Wild depart with him, but
he's going. He's going.
Yeah.
It's happening, unfortunately, but
I feel like the Bruins would bring in a JJ Peterka type. That's the hunch I feel, but Toronto is not letting Nyes go. Bruins are going to retain Geeky. So out of those players, I'm focusing on Rossi and Coyle.
Okay, awesome. Defensemen. Taking a look at the defense core for the Bruins projected heading into this next season. And I like it a lot more than I like the forward group projections. But I still think the Bruins might want to add a defenseman here. I really don't know a lot about Frederic Brunet, but he's projected to be that odd guy out, but potentially looking at making the lineup. Mikey, what do you think here? The defense core, are there any additions you'd like to see? We'll obviously get to defensemen. I'll bring up on the screen, but do you think the Bruins need to improve the defense, or do you think it's set heading into the year?
For the most part, I feel like it's pretty set. My number one thing with the Bruins defenseman is getting healthy. Plenty of things went wrong for the Bruins last year, including injuries to key players. Lindholm's eventual season-ending knee injury, McAvoy's shoulder turmoil after the Four Nations, back injury to Elias, forward group, but lots of injuries, and you had a Swayman underperform, so that was the worst possible mix that happened to the Bruins. I'm looking at in a perfect scenario, and if I'm picking players and lining them up come October, I'm having Lowry and McAvoy as the top pair. My second pair, I'm going with Lindholm. Go ahead and sign a person like Dante Fabro for, $3.5 million. Third line pair, I'm keeping it as Zadorov and Peak. So I don't think you're going to get too many changes to the blue line. Lindholm's going to be healthy. McAvoy's going to be healthy. You're going to keep Lowry, Zadorov, and Peak. So I think you're just probably focused on bringing in one defenseman. And, I'm not opposed to just bringing in a guy like Dante Fabro.
Perfect. And he just happens to be on the screen here. List of UFA defensemen that are available. Quite a few of them here. You have already mentioned age, so I have a feeling that Brent Burns might not be at the top of your list to get signed by the Bruins this offseason. But what do you think about the guys in this list? Any other names that you might like to see them add?
Provorov, I've always liked what he's done when he's surrounded by the players that he needs to play with. So I'm not opposed to players like Provorov. Ryan Lindgren wouldn't be a bad choice either. But if it was me, I'm focusing on Fabro and Provorov. Those would be my two guys. I'm not completely opposed to Ryan Lindgren, but my focus is on Provorov and Fabro.
Perfect. And final segment, or before second last segment, is goaltenders. Jeremy Swayman, starting goalie. I don't think there's any controversy there. And then Jonas Korpisalo backup. You were kind of mentioning maybe Korpisalo getting moved, maybe potentially, as he wants to play more games. We'll take a look at the list of goalies here in a second, but maybe give us thoughts on who you'd like to see Korpisalo get replaced by.
Yeah, I think if they decide to move Korpisalo due to his comments at the end of the year saying he wants to play more, and given what they're paying him, I think Ottawa's only retaining $1 million. So I think the Bruins are on the hook for $3 million or $4 million, I believe, a year for him. Don't completely quote me on the math, but if he goes, personally, I would like them to bring in a player with some NHL experience, and I would bring back Dan Vladar. He's already played for the Bruins. He's at that right age. He saw the pasture wasn't necessarily greener over there in Calgary. But they might just stick with the Providence guys. They might just put in Mike DiPietro. He's like a $900,000 type of player, and they may just have him back up Swayman. The good news is, we're not going to go through what Swayman went through last summer, which was, the contract holdout, not reporting to training camp. When he finally decided to show up, he was very rusty, and that started just a ton of problems for this team. So that's not going to be the case. We saw how he played over in the World Tournament just last week. He was absolutely phenomenal. That's a Jeremy Swayman that they signed to a long-term deal. So, hopefully Corpy, decides to come back and just play his handful of games. If not, and they want to get rid of him, and if they want someone outside of Mike DiPietro from Providence, I'm looking at Dan Vladar. He's already been with the Bruins. He knows what to expect. He knows he's a backup that's going to play 20-ish type of games. So that's what I'm looking at.
I think that's a great choice. Looking at the UFA goalies available, obviously he's the youngest of the group, but had a pretty decent season last year with Calgary. And not that he was projected to be an auto fade, but I was looking to fade the Flames. Like when they had Dustin Wolf in net, I was more likely to back them. But when Vladar was in net, I was more likely to fade the Flames. And that didn't necessarily go too well. Vladar was not an auto fade. He played pretty well last year. So I think he could be a good addition for the team. And then Jake Ottinger, of course, is heavy in the, not rumors, but obviously the way the Stars season ended yesterday. There's lots of talk about Jake Ottinger. And of course, the Bruins just would not be a fit for Ottinger with Swayman already signed long-term. RFA goaltender is probably not what the Bruins are looking for. They probably are looking more for that UFA backup if they need one.
Yeah. If I could just, I know we're talking Bruins, but just real quick with this whole Ottinger situation, what DeBoer said yesterday, people are up in arms about what he did. I understand what he did. He called a timeout and then pulled Ottinger. Usually to spark a team, you're doing one of two things. You're either calling a timeout and talking to the team, or you're pulling the goalie and getting a spark. And he did both during the same timeout, which is very rare. But, at the end of the day, Ottinger is signed long-term. We can't baby them and say his feelings are hurt. I think what DeBoer did was fine. Should he have kept his comments in-house? He probably should have, but Ottinger, I think he'll understand, and this should make him bigger, faster, stronger, because what DeBoer said was true. He hasn't been good against Edmonton, and he did vocalize that to the media and the world, but, I don't think that means they should get rid of DeBoer just because of that. I think Ottinger can learn from it and come back, and I think both will be okay.
Yeah, I totally don't know how I missed that he had re-signed. That was a total mistake by me, but yeah, he's signed to an 8-year deal contract extension. But so he isn't an RFA, but he's definitely at the top of not trade rumors, but there's so much talk about how that went. And I agree with you. Partly, it's the post-game comments that I think are the issue. He's saying Jake Ottinger is not the issue. but then immediately says, I pulled him because
Right.
he's lost 6 of the last 7 against Edmonton, and
Yeah.
kind of went on with that. So we've seen the Patrick Waugh pictures of him in Montreal way back when are on Twitter, and there's all this stuff going on. People are thinking, and I don't think Ottinger requests a trade, but that's just a really tough way, I think, for the season to end.
The board's frustrated. He struggles. He can turn a team around, and he can bring you to the Western Conference or Eastern Conference Finals every year if you wanted to. It's just he can't get over that hump, just like Rod Brind'Amour in Carolina can't get over the hump. But I think they'll be okay.
Exactly. Move to the final segment, which is off-season tasks for the Bruins. I, of course, will start. And my first one is decide the team's direction. Now, a lot of people are looking at the Bruins thinking that they just need to completely tear it down and start from scratch and looking at the forward group like that we did look at earlier on in the show. I do think there's some major holes there. But I think with extending Don Sweeney, I think that pretty much says that they're not going into a complete rebuild. I don't think he would be sticking around if they were going to completely tear it down and rebuild. So I think him staying kind of gives the impression that maybe they're not going to go all in, but I don't see a complete total rebuild coming for the Bruins. Hiring head coach is still an off-season task, even though there's lots of rumors that it's very close to being done. Sign Morgan Geekie long-term, re-sign Mason Lohrei, and then just decide on the other RFAs. And then if, of course, the Bruins are deciding that they do want to compete, then, of course, you got to add more forwards. I didn't have that on the list because it's tough to tell what the Bruins are going to do this offseason. Are they going to make a bunch of additions and try to go for it? Are they going to try to retool, get a bit younger, and maybe get some younger players that might not make a huge impact this year, but more the next couple years? There's a lot of question marks with the Bruins. So if they're going to kind of stand pat, then obviously you're not going to sign a bunch of guys, but they do have cap space. If they want to try to compete this year, then they're going to have to sign some extra guys. Mikey, what are your off-season tasks?
Yeah, it is. In my opinion, this is going to be a retool on the fly. It's rare to be in the position Boston's in. They have a top 7 pick. They have a lot of cap space, and they have 3 franchise cornerstone players that they can build around, which is David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman. So it is going to be a retool on the fly. Fill in some offensive holes with players like Sam Bennett and Will Coyle. Insert players from Providence that you got during the trade deadline, like Fraser Minton. You're going to sign Geekie. You're going to sign Lohrei. And if you can just add in a Bennett, a Coyle, an Ehlers, a Dante Fabro, those 4 or 5 players that we talked about on this show, it's going to be a quick retool. They're going to be competitive. They're going to make the playoffs. Now, is it a Stanley Cup winning roster? That's to be determined, but they have the pieces. They signed Lindholm. They have Zacha. They brought Middlestad in. So this isn't a doom and gloom 10-year rebuild. This is a quick retool on the fly.
And you still have Pastrnak.
Absolutely.
If there was no Pastrnak on this roster, then I would be more leaning towards the tear it down, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, what you said was absolutely 100%. If you don't have the pasta, then it's a complete tear down and rebuild. But that's not the case. You have those 3 franchise cornerstone players. You already have players you signed in the offseason a year or 2 ago, like the Lindholms and the Zakas. So this is a retool on the fly.
Perfect. And that's the Boston Bruins offseason preview show. Make sure to go give Mikey a follow. His Twitter /X link is in the description below. And then leave your comments in the description of the video. What do you think the Bruins need to do this offseason? Should they try to compete? Should they do more of a retool or a rebuild? Leave your comments in the video below. Thanks for joining me, Mikey. I hope you come back in a couple months and we'll kind of take a look at the season preview for the Bruins next year and take a look at how much different that forward group is going to look, because I think it's going to look a lot different in a couple months than what I had projected for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. You did a great job. And yeah, we'll reconnect here in a couple months and see what the season preview is going to be like.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you guys on the next show.